Hi, I'm Mr. Miyagi and this is Mr. Miyagi's workshop. Well, today we're going to work on the old 69. We're putting the sort of rebuilt motor in. Actually, all we did is the upper end, but we did change out the cam. So we're going to install that today, and I'm going to show you how I like to do things. I've got these little lift tables here. I have these scissor jack style lifts so I can put this motor in easily by myself. This one came with my handy lift, and this one over here, I think I bought it from J&P Cycle. I also think that Harbor Freight carries something similar to that too. They really help when you're working on these motorcycles. You can lift them up and set them down, especially like for cleaning the rear wheel or popping the front end off. So anyway, I'm going to get this set up and we'll go from there. Okay, so I got it kind of set in there in place, and we have 2 bolts that we have to put in. Boy, this makes it a lot easier. Only 2 bolts to hold the motor in. We have a shorter one that goes at the bottom and the longer one that goes at the top. And let me get this up in place. But like I was saying, is that these little lifts are really nice for doing this, because if you don't have a buddy to give you a hand, then it can be a little tough to install these motors. So I'm going to push the one bolt from the other side, the top bolt in. This is what is kind of nice though. If you don't have anybody to give you a hand to do this, then it can be kind of cumbersome. So let's see what about this rear one. And then it's an easy solution of just lowering that down. So that went in fairly easy. And then of course you just put your nuts on, and then we'll torque these down in place. Now before I get too excited here about tightening these down, I'm going to put the carburetor on. Why, you ask? Well, might be a little easier to install. And I'm also going to install the exhaust. So this motor moves around a little bit in here, and when I was taking this apart, everything was a little bit tight, so I'm not sure what was going on there. So I'm going to put this kind of together, slip that up in there. And I have the insulator block and a gasket. And here again, I'm just, instead of putting some goop on it, we're going to use a little bit of grease or lubricant here. I'm using that CRC assembly lube. And I'll put the gasket on there. And then we'll put a little bit on the gasket and smear it out so that we have a good area. You could use sealer, you could use whatever you want. This is what I'm using. I'm going to put a little bit on top plate here, because that just seals against the manifold itself. I'm trying to take care of a lot of this little stuff before we get everything tightened up here, and then realize I can't get it in place. Okay, I just snugged those down, and then we'll go from there. We're going to put the exhaust on now. Okay, I got a new copper exhaust gasket here. I had to redo these studs on the head for the exhaust. They were kind of coming out. They weren't, and they were kind of crusty and whatever. So I got those kind of straightened around. These exhaust gaskets are kind of rolled around some insulation. So you want to put the smooth side toward the exhaust and this in up towards the head, and they just kind of push up in there. They're a little snug, and what will happen is that the exhaust will push that up into place. So we get the shock mount on, kind of get everything working up in here. Okay, got the head stuff kind of forced up in there. And then we're a little bit off on the shock mount piece, but I'm going to put the nuts on the studs for the exhaust here on the engine. And that'll kind of hold this end in place. I may end up building a new exhaust for this. We'll see how that cam goes. I may want to open it up a little more. The awesome power of that performance cam. Anyway, let's see. Okay, that's on. Let's see if we can't get this. And this is the problem I ran into before, is that it's like this doesn't quite fit. It's all kind of shoved this way a little bit. So I'm going to rearrange some stuff here, and then I'll get right back to you. Okay, I put the lift in here, lifted up that motor a little bit. I'm going to tighten down this exhaust to see if I can pull this up in there a little tighter. And then maybe this center one will slide on. It's almost there, but not quite. Okay, I had to do a little tapping and whatever. I got that up into place. I'm going to tighten down these motor mounts, bolts. And don't forget the lock washers on those too. So we really don't need the scissor jack anymore. And that's another thing too you could use if you wanted to put the motor in with. You could actually find an old scissor jack and use that to put the motor in. If you don't have a buddy that will come by and give you a hand. And then I'm going to recheck the front nuts here on the exhaust. And then we'll slip around to the other side and we can install some of the wiring. Okay, we got a bundle of wires coming from the stator area. So what we have here is we got 3 yellows and one white with a red stripe. Now the yellows don't really matter which one you plug into. And I like to use a couple of needle nose, push these together, get them clipped in there well. I'm going to tape this all off. There we go. And then we're going to plug the white with the red stripe in on this one. And then one of the important parts is this little green wire coming off here that plugs into the other green wire, and that's for points. So this all, like I said, this will all get taped up and neaten up a bit. So I think what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put on the skid plate and the shifter and all that, and then we can put some Earl into this, maybe hook up some stuff and start it up. Well, these shields are fairly simple, but a pain in the butt to get on. Because you gotta kind of, some of them will slide on fairly easy and some will fight you like this one. So I'm gonna put some screws in. Make sure they got the lock washers on. Oh goodness. I guess I got to put the flat washers on. That would help too. So we have a foot peg set up right here. Goes on a certain way here. That just attaches back here off of the engine. Oh, there it goes. So that does have to go up around the brake area there. I'm going to go on the other side and put the other screws in, and then we'll put these in. This stuff all goes together much easier if you put it in right the first time. Might as well put the kickstart on. Alrighty. Tap that on a little further. Slides up in there. I may change this and move it back a little bit. I don't know yet. But I just thought I'd put it there for now. 11 millimeter. All right. Boy, that feels like a lot more compression. All right, so I got everything kind of gone through. I hooked up all the wiring, hooked up the battery, put oil in it, got the carburetor hooked up with the fuel and everything, checked the spark on the spark plug to make sure it would spark, and everything is a go. So right now I got to do is turn the key on. I've got it on choke, and we'll see if this thing will start. Take the choke off, but it started. Battery ran dead on the camera, but it keeps dying out. All right, start this thing up again. Hand start. Okay, right there is where it wants to run. The mark is, when the firing mark is right there. What I did is this little mark here, I've got it set, because we've changed cams and everything in this, so normally that O would be probably right in that area there, but that brought that mark up on that firing mark up to where it was supposed to be right at. All right, let's see if this thing will start up again. like it's running out of fuel. Well, you can see the little 69 is running. There's a few little things I'm going to have to deal with. I've got a leak on the other side. I think it's coming from the case. I don't know if I've got that gasket on there proper. So I may have to take that apart. And the carburetor is an aftermarket carburetor. And it seems to be working okay, but I may end up having to raise the needle on it just a little bit to get a little bit more fuel in it. Got to remember, we put in a bigger piston and a longer duration cam, so that could change a lot of the stuff around a little bit. And I'm going to let this all cool down, and then I'm going to do a valve adjustment and everything. But what I like to do is I like to start them up, get them warm, shut them down. Do that 3 different times, and that helps sinks all those gaskets, especially on the head and everything, get that all kind of tempered into each other. But that's pretty much it right now. So if there's any questions or comments, you can put them in the comment section below, or you can send them to my email address at tmiyagi@hotmail.com. And if you've liked this episode, please like, share, and subscribe. And don't forget that ringy-dingy button over there for the next episode coming up. So this is Mr. Miyagi saying, be safe out there. Hope to see you on the road. Ciao.